Hello, this is Jim Weaver. I am starting a esoteric, occult, spiritual alchemy blog. I have a qigong blog uh, that I've also been doing, and this is a separate one. This works more with a Western view and style of teaching or techniques that are more akin to the Western side of the feds. There are Eastern and Western. One is not better than the other. They're just different styles, different takes on really the same process of awakening and enlightenment. I've been working in the Western tradition for most of my life. Also the Eastern tradition. I tend to do both simultaneously, and at different times I'll focus on the different ones and work with them. So I want to offer the insights and the knowledge that I've gained over the years, over the past, 30 or so years that I've been working with the Western tradition. Very powerful, very beautiful path. And they both really, the goal is the same, Eastern and Western. I just want to offer this up for people to help them save a lot of time and energy. Because there's a lot of trash out there. There's a lot of garbage out there, and I've had to sift through over the years. And before the internet, I was, looking at books, going to seminars and so forth, speaking with different people, working with different systems. Before there was all this influx of internet knowledge out there. There's a lot of trash out there. There's a lot of people offering things that really they have just read somewhere. They haven't really practiced it. Anything that I'm offering here, I'm offering from years of working with that particular form, system, teaching for many years and have a lot of experience with it. So I'm offering up my experience here for anyone to use and to gain a foothold with these teachings and move along a lot. It'll help you move along a lot faster working with these systems. Get my notes here because it helps me to focus on particular areas. First, I want to start with a question, and I ask this also of my qigong students and meditation students. And this question for me sums up in a lot of ways what this is all about, and it can speed up the process. It works for me. It's kind of like my default question that brings me back to the beginning again. Beginner's mind, which is actually an Eastern concept, but it's in the West also. The child, be like a child, be curious, be open to always questioning everything. Keep that young, open mind. I recommend it. Don't think that you know it all, because we don't. The more you know, when you really, really know it, the more you realize you don't know. The more you figure out, wow, there's so much more to know. And that's okay. Stay in that open state. I really recommend it. But my question is, basically, and I'm working from a premise that there is a creative intelligence in nature that is running the show. Basically, it is unfolding this beautiful universe and knows what it's doing. It's intelligent. It has to be. It's obvious. There's an intelligence making that tree and the grass out there. There just is. It's an intelligence, I think it's far beyond us, our intelligence, far beyond it. We could never create something like that. It's just, like the creation and the beauty and the truth and the power of it is far beyond us, far beyond me. I know that. So I'm working from the premise that there is an intelligence, a pre-existing intelligence, okay, that helped create us and create everything else. Call it God, whatever you want. And when I say God, I don't mean a male God sitting up there on a throne with a stick ready to hit us when we do something wrong. I don't mean that. I mean an intelligent, loving, compassionate, also very fierce intelligence out there that's behind everything. So when I say God, I want you to know that's what I mean. God, goddess, and believe me, I'm a major fan of the goddess. I'm a major goddess worshiper. Everyone that knows me knows that. The goddess is really that form of God that I can feel connected to right away. I have a better link with it, a better communication with it right away, rather than the male side, which I acknowledge also. I think the ultimate form, the ultimate source is beyond male and female. The division comes into one, and it's that which is beyond the split, before everything split, divided into two. Male and female, black, white, up and down, back and forth, whatever you want to call it, the yin yang. In the Eastern, called yin yang. But I want to try to stick to the Western terms here to make it easy and familiar to work with. Anyway, my question is, and you can, I'd like you to send in, on the comments, give me your answers. Tell me what you think the answer is, because everyone has a different answer for this. When I ask my students, I get a lot of different answers, which I like. I like getting all those different answers. But I've got the answer. I'll give you the answer at the end of this particular video, because just to get things started, I'm going to give you the answer, and it's a logical, simple answer to that question. And the question is, and again, I'm not using God in the patriarchal sense that it's been used in that sense of thought that it's been used in our culture for so long. What did God make everything out of? What was the material God used to create everything? That's the question. Now send in your answers. I'd be interested in knowing. At the end of this, I will give you my answer to it. And you can take this answer and use it to focus on what's really going on here. What is all of this about? Why are we here? Who are we? There's a lot of different theories about that, why we're here and what's going on here. Anyway, I have researched a lot of different paths to find answers for this over the years, throughout my whole life. I've researched a lot of different paths. I started very young, when I was growing up. And it's the same old story. My parents were really messed up, alcoholic, drug addict, divorcees, violence, a harsh reality to grow up in. And so I began to ask right away, well, why is this happening to me? I have friends that have these families, and they actually sit down for dinner and they say prayers together, and they do stuff, they've got this regular family, whereas mine, wasn't like that. So I asked a lot of questions. Why is this happening to me? What is this about? So began my quest. And I went through a lot of systems. I started really with martial arts when I was young, because I grew up in a very rough neighborhood in a couple of areas and had to defend myself. And martial arts led into the energetic arts. That got me into the Eastern strand of things. And the Eastern strand is more in the other blog that I do. I'm going to try to keep this in a Western focus. It all relates, though, so there will be some Eastern elements in this blog. And the martial arts led me into, besides getting healthy and focused, to develop the energy body. Got introduced to the energy body very young, and chi and what that is. So I started from there. And basically, when I was a young man, I moved to the jungles of Hawaii to get away. I was done with civilization, so to speak, Moved to Hawaii, lived in the jungle for several years, practiced yoga and meditation. Again, Eastern, but the focus was meditation, yoga, and eventually lived in a yoga community at Ananda in Nevada City, California. A Yogananda community with Swami Kriyananda. who's the leader of that community. Lived there for a couple of years. Learned a lot. Learned how to teach yoga, and was teaching yoga for a while. Eventually leading me to wonder about a Western tradition. Is there a Western yoga? And there is. Hermeticism, alchemy, Kabbalah, magic, shamanism. Got involved in these different systems in different ways. Started practicing magic, studying Kabbalah, studying Western alchemical traditions. And alchemy covers a lot of things. Mostly Hermetic alchemy, not the outer alchemy, where you're taking actual potions and putting them together and creating elixirs or working with different outer formulas. Inner formulas, emotional, energetic, spiritual forces in the body, and creating, the philosopher's stone, or whatever you want to call it, the end result. And there's a lot of different terms for that. Alchemy's huge. And of course, the Taoism came in with the different, with Qigong. Eventually, I met my Qigong teacher. It started from there, getting into Qigong, and I found that Qigong really developed that energy body, that alchemical energy body, very powerfully, very strong. The Hindu tradition got initiated into various tantric Hindu traditions. Kriya Yoga with Yogananda. Worked with Swami Kaleshwar, and learned Tantra and Yantra. The Yantra is a physical representation of a mantra, so you can actually see the mantra as a geometric shape in front of you when you do the mantra. Things like that. Got really very deeply involved with it. Various rituals done during the new and the full moon, using those forces in nature to carry you along, to strengthen it. And I'll talk more about that, using the natural forces in nature, the sun, the moon, the stars, the earth, also in the Western tradition, just like the Eastern traditions. How to utilize them and catch their wave and use that wave to carry you. Kabbalah, very powerful, very beautiful. A lot of different strands in it. There's the Jewish Kabbalah, and then there's the Hermetic and the magical Kabbalah, which is slightly different emphasis. Now, the Jewish people will tell you that Kabbalah originated with them, and at this time, blah, 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 blah. But actually, it goes back a lot further. People have done research. I've researched it. It actually goes back to Babylon, back to Egypt. It covers it's very ancient and covers a lot of ground. I'll be going into some of those, using some of those principles to help you grow. I mean, it's just, it can't do anything but expand your awareness and consciousness. Very powerful, very good. Again, East and West can work together. I recommend, if you get into a particular practice that's Western or Eastern, stay with that. Get that really ground into your system. Really refine it. Get it really strong and powerful. Eventually, they'll mesh. You'll see parallels. You got to wait until you're really integrated it to get those parallels to work. Some of them don't match at all. That's just the way it is. Different schools of thought have different focuses, and I talked about that on my Qigong blog. They're different facets of the same jewel, and sometimes you can work at coming at different angles. Others, you're just going to block yourself from getting anywhere. So be careful with that. And again, like I said, there's lots of garbage out there about stuff. You're going to have to sift through. I recommend keep researching. That's what I do. I look from as many angles as possible. Sometimes you'll research somebody or a system, and you'll realize, God, this is not working. Drop it. Move on. Shift over. Get a thread and follow that thread. That's what I do. I get a thread of a teaching, a mystery, a knowledge, and I'll follow that thread through, and I'll follow it, and I'll follow it, and I'll see where it leads me, and I'll get a lot of interesting things out of it. And soon it's like you're developing, you're building, you're cultivating that awareness of those particular teachings. Stick with it. Don't give up. Look from as many angles as possible. But really, it's about staying with something and really developing that relationship with it. Very, very important. And basically, just like the question I started out with, here's what it comes down to, people. I'm going to give you my ultimate truth. And the ultimate truth is, and it's chintzy and it's cheesy and it's the old saying, we're all one. That's the truth. We're still really all one. We never really divided into all these different things. We are ultimately connected to and one with the source of all things, back to the beginning of all things. We're still there. We never really left. It seems like we left. We're playing this game of being divided into all these separate little parts. It's finding its way back to the beginning. Well, on an ultimate, absolute level, it never happened. We're still operating from that original source, that original self. We never left. And it's easy to say that and intellectualize it. To realize it is another thing. And that's what all these teachings are about, is to get you back to that original self that never, quote, fell into all this. The time and the space thing is the illusion. It had to happen that way for some reason, and who knows why. In the end, it doesn't matter why. What matters is what happened, and who are we now? You eventually find out why, but in the end, you really don't. It doesn't matter anymore. It's already happened. On an ultimate, beyond time and space level, it hasn't happened. It hasn't. We're still back in the original source, back at the beginning, watching all this happen. And it's a cool dream. It's a beautiful dream. There's terror in it. There's horror. There's, psychodrama. And there's absolute beauty and truth and knowledge and bliss. It's a great story. It's a great story. All stories come from the one story. It's all a story. And there are different stories to it. And as you want to go back to that original story. What's the original story? Well, the original story seems to be that we're all these separate little beings going through all these separate dramas. And that's just not true. We are the one being. We are one being. Apparently divided. And that's the game. And we're finding our way back to that one truth. So ultimately, really, you never left home. You cannot be destroyed. You, the essential you, the real you, cannot be destroyed. Because you come from the original thing, the original point that we all come from. God, Goddess, all that is, whatever you want to call it. The Tao, Yahweh, whatever you want to call that. And it doesn't care what you call it. It's far beyond words or boxes that you can put it in. That all these names and forms are just separate little compartments that our mind puts it in so that we can work with it. It's the whole box, it's the whole thing. Like you can have the chalkboard and you can draw a dot on the chalkboard and say this is it. But it's the chalkboard too, and the room that the chalkboard's in, and the building, and where the building, it's everything, it's all of it, it's the whole background of everything. That's what we want to realize, that we are that. So that means this is where all the teachings come down to. What you do to somebody else, you do to yourself, because really it is yourself. You hurt somebody or something else, even an animal or, an insect. I kill mosquitoes. They're biting me. I have my thing that I'm working with too. Animals, whatever. They're all you. Me, I'm you. You're me. That's the ultimate truth. We have to deal with it. What does that mean? What you do unto others, you do to yourself. All the Christian teachings come into this. The real Christianity. Love one another. Why do you want to love one another? Because you're loving you. It's all you. And not the little you that is apparently separated from the one. Not that you. On an ultimate level, yes, that too. That individual little egoistic you is has its own thing that it's going through, but you are connected with everyone and everything else. And if you can remember that, it changes everything. It changes all your actions. You actually become moral without having rules placed on you. It's a natural childlike morality. Oh, I don't want to hurt them. Because you feel it. That's where compassion, real spiritual compassion comes from. Realizing that's you suffering out there. Okay, so that's a basic beginning outline, introduction to the metaphysical teachings and systems that I'll be giving here. That's just the beginning. I just want to lay that premise out there. Now I'm going to give you the answer to the question. What did, quote, God make everything out of? Are you ready? Himself, herself, itself. God didn't have anything else to work with but itself, himself, herself, whatever you want to call it. So what does that mean? What are the implications of that statement? Well, contemplate it. Think about it. It means it's all God. The good, the bad, the ugly. Yes, even the devil is God. And some will argue, well, God didn't make the devil. The devil made himself because he rebelled against God. Well, God put that will, self-will, into the devil, that angel that fell. So, yeah, it's God too. So anything good or bad or fantastic or terrible that's happening or going on, it's all God. It means that you are never out of God. You're never away from God. Even if things seem so horrible and terrible, God is there because these things wouldn't be there without God. And if you can remember that, contemplate that. What did God make everything out of? Well, God made this. This is God too. This is all made out of God's body. All of it, the whole thing, the whole kit and caboodle is all God. The good stuff, the great stuff, the cream on the cake, the icing, and the bad stuff, the shit that we have to deal with. That's all there too. God is in there. Look in those difficult times, people, places, situations you have to deal with. There's a jewel. The jewel of God is in there. That's the challenge. That's finding the philosopher's stone. That's finding the treasure buried deep in the earth. God is buried deep in the earth. That awareness, that consciousness is deep in matter. It's buried deep inside. We have to get through the layers, sift through. There it is. There's the truth within the lie. There's the light within the darkness. That's our game. We're playing the game. We got to play the game. Enjoy it. Have fun with it. And I'll be talking more about different ways of playing this game. And it's not really it's like getting beyond winning and losing. Everyone wins in the end. We're all going to win. Because we want everyone else to win too, because it's all us in the end. They're all us, and they're important. The other is just as important as yourself. Because there really is no other. That's the game. That's the illusion that we're in. So don't forget that, and send your answers and give me your comments. Let me know what you think. particularly about that question, what did God make everything out of? What did you consider when I asked that question? What's the first thing that came out of your mind? Oh, well, God made everything out of dust. God made everything out of energy. God made everything out of love. Well, where did God get that material to make everything out of itself? I'll talk to you soon. More to come. And enjoy. Yeah, peace.